I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey, y'all, I'm Molly Barrows, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast, where we dive into some pretty scandalous cases, some that bubble up right here in Northwest Florida, and some that appear in other parts of the country, because there is no shortage of weird stuff going on and terrible stuff going on all over this country that we got to talk about, Pam.
Definitely. Well, this is weirdo stuff in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Yes, I know, and this is about the, we're basically calling this case the Christmas Parade Crasher, the Darrell Brooks sideshow.
You almost said that right. The Shiznit Show.
The Shiznit Show, I know. The Christmas Parade Crasher, the Darrell Brooks sideshow. So I remember this when it first happened. I was still reporting for Russian television, RT America, and this was one of those stories that they had me cover. And if y'all remember, this is the guy that basically drove his car blocks through a blocked off street where they were having a Christmas parade in this small town, and he killed 6 people, injured like 60 others. And I remember specifically following the Dancing Grannies because they took a big hit. Like there were several members of theirs that were killed and injured and connected to that group. And also so 8 to 81 was the age range of the victims. A little boy was the 8-year-old. But those Dancing Grannies, I still follow them on Facebook.
Yeah.
They're so sweet, and the way they just, literally just kept it together and continued to perform. And that's what happened with that whole town. It's really about the silver lining is that it brought the town together, and the entire country really poured their heart out to these people. But this guy, wow, you'd think as if plowing through people at a Christmas parade wasn't bad enough. He never took responsibility, never seemed to express any remorse. Not one, but 2 trials for this guy. So yeah, I'm so glad we're following up on this. I really had not paid as much attention to it after the initial horrific incident.
You just can't you can't look away because you're like, it's incredulous. So here we are in Waukesha, Wisconsin. We visited there before with the eye drop murder case.
Crazy.
Same judge, Judge Jennifer Darrow. And I love her because she's very poised and polite and no nonsense. And plus she looks like Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And she's up there and she's taking this little ding-ding on. She did this better than anybody in the whole world would because she was patient with him. And you're going to find out after a while, nobody wants to be patient with him doing this. But I looked, and I think she was being considered for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So that would be a reason to say, I don't want any appeals coming back on this clown, this sideshow, this Shiznit show going on here. So here we got Darrell Brooks. He just had a fight with his girlfriend, or past girlfriend.
Right, the mother of his
baby mama.
Yes.
And so he's upset and he's mad. He gets in his car to drive off, and he just ends up coming through the back of the parade. It's a red SUV. He's barreling through there at about 40 miles an hour, hitting people, hitting things. Bodies are flying.
Like they're nothing.
Yeah, these are people. We got an 8-year-old boy. He's walking with his baseball team. We got the Dancing Grannies. 1, 2, 3 of the Dancing Grannies got killed. One of the husbands of a surviving Dancing Granny, he was a helper. You know how people carry stuff or give you water. They're dancing and dancing, having a good time. He got killed. And then a lady that worked right there at one of the banks right there in Waukesha. So they've been doing this for 60 years. Over half a century. It's the way they kick off their holiday season there.
Good Lord. And he just came plowing through like the devil himself.
Right? Well, quite the devil, but he renamed himself. He said when they were basically, the police caught up to him because he got out of the car and ran. He's going through neighborhoods, getting in people's ring. This guy is so weird. He gets right up in the Ring doorbell and he's yelling to someone, call me an Uber. They're like, what?
They'll never
Yeah,
find me.
right.
I mean, everybody had video of this guy plowing through people.
So he's out there, and they're saying, we got you on ring. We got you there. That key in your pocket matches the car that just did that. Well, he said, it wasn't me.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Thanks for clearing that up for us.
It wasn't me. And then, so now let's just go on to court there. He's in court, and he sits there, and basically his defense is, I am a sovereign citizen.
Let's talk a little bit about what a sovereign citizen is.
Okay.
So do you know? Can you tell me?
A sovereign citizen, they feel that they are not subject to or under the federal rules, and they do not have to follow United States laws.
Yeah, it's interesting. That term just came up for the first time in another story that I've been looking into, and I'm pulling it up on my laptop right now so I can read the official definition. Sovereign citizens believe that courts have no jurisdiction over people and that the use of certain procedures, such as laws and stuff, that's just my little ad lib, but such as writing specific phrases on bills they don't want to pay and loopholes can make one immune to government laws and regulations. So it seems to me that people who are adamant about avoiding responsibility really hop on the sovereign citizen train.
I don't even know why. It makes no sense. It's almost like me saying, I think every house should have a unicorn. Just because I think that.
Well, and I would like every house to have a unicorn.
I know that.
But it's like living, like you said, to your point, that's living in fantasy land. And that's kind of how it popped up in this other case. And it's one that I'm looking into. And you're definitely going to hear more about this as I dive into it. But essentially, a man died based on some, according to his family, alternative medicinal practices, if you will. And they ended up filing a lawsuit against a woman doctor who was licensed in Georgia over her recommended care that she gave for this guy. And they won the lawsuit. And in order not to pay, she declared herself a sovereign citizen. So it seems to me that there's perhaps a pattern of people who are trying to avoid the most severe consequences, but they're just living in Candyland. Like you said, they're just living in their, well, I'm a sovereign citizen. The rules, the laws, they don't apply to me.
Yeah, like shotgun. Right. Right up front. It's just so silly.
Oh, okay. We'll let you go.
Yeah, really.
Sovereign citizen that you are.
It's just so silly. But you see this crazy wackadoo stuff coming in a lot of the cases that we have, this bizarre thinking. And I guarantee you, when you start experimenting on people and think you're a sovereign citizen, sovereign doctor, sovereign whatever, you will find out what unsovereign means.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. When I think our boy here got a little taste of that, Darrell Brooks with the Wonder Woman judge.
He was a do-it-yourself attorney. He wanted to represent himself.
So did he ever have like a public defender or any kind of
attorney? Gave him one.
And then it just didn't work out?
Yeah, they gave him one, and he can't cooperate with anybody.
Right.
Let me just tell you like what this little knucklehead did. He basically lied about being
Wasn't me.
Driving. Yeah, wasn't me. Little fake tears and stuff. And then he would have this psychotic stare, and he would go back and forth with the judge. So here's some of the things he told her. He's like, I don't care what you believe. You're not rushing me to judgment. He said, I'm a grown man with grown kids, and nobody going to talk to me like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then he's like, one of the other lawyers said the word defendant, and he didn't like the enunciation on the syllable he didn't like. So he gets up there and goes, does she have to say it like that? Defendant, defendant. I mean, it's like watching a petulant child.
Well, I'm sure the families that lost loved ones didn't like it when their loved ones died.
Right. And he's doing like this, excuse my finger, but I'm waving my finger in your face. Your life's not on the line. Mine is, Well, you put yourself there, dum-dum.
Wow. Almost like a cartoon character.
Right. So he just keeps on being disruptive. He's hateful to everybody. He won't sit down. He turns his back to the judge, like Ted Bundy did when he was doing his little do-it-yourself attorney stuff. And you just look at this stuff and go, why are they letting him do that? But I know it's because they don't want to come back with an appeal. But there's a point, in my opinion, that this stuff needs to stop because the inmates are running the asylum.
Right. It's the sideshow that you're talking about.
Right. Let the sideshow, freak show, shiznit show begin. And it's a race to the bottom. And it is very disrespectful to victims and to the community and to the court and to the judge. But if we're going to keep on being like mandy-pandy about stuff and let the folks like this run the courts, then we're going to get what we get and we can't throw a fit. So we got this one here. So he was so bizarre and disruptive, the judge had to put him into an adjacent courtroom by himself, by Zoom. And so he gets in there and he decides to wear his little prison clothes that day because he wasn't dressing up or anything, because they kind of do that too. So they can appeal the case and go, you made me come in prison clothes. So she told him to go change if he wanted to. So anyway, he's back in there. He can't listen. He can't act right. So Judge Jennifer Darrow says, let me remedy this. So she makes him a little sign, much better than this. This says objection. It's just on a piece of paper, objection. So when he didn't like something, he'd just
hold it up to the camera.
Yeah, and shake it and shuffle papers and stuff. And she just kind of had to ignore him because he would object to the objection. Okay? So,
anything to disrupt.
Anything. He's just a rebel rouser. So he's topless in there. He decides, she's not listening to me, but she is. So he decides to tuck this down in his pants.
Good
and
Lord.
Look like that.
Why does it always go back to the pants?
I don't know, but I mean, like, here he is, he's shuffling papers, and he's in there, and he's just sitting there, and he's tearing paper, and listening to her, and shaking his finger at her.
Has this worked for him before? People just get tired of him and like, all right, just go ahead and do your thing, man, because we're just tired of fooling with you. But this is the court of law. You have murdered people.
Yeah, apparently it does. We all do what works for us, and that's what I'm saying. We have just gone crazy letting people with the less than behavior that are out here doing the least but doing the most crazy run us all. So here we are with this, and he gets up there shaking that sign and doing all this, objecting to anything the other lawyer says, and then the lawyer says something, he goes, what grounds? And relevance, and I mean, he's just slinging every word.
Learned a few legal terms
Boston
and would just
legal.
randomly throw them out there.
Yeah, I learned it on Ally McNeil, or Ally McBeal, whatever it is there. But
Ally McBeal, and then Ally McNeil
the dancing
was
baby.
the follow-up.
Yeah,
right
the little dancing baby. But also, part of his defense too was the car malfunction. Well, a minute ago you weren't in it. And then he said, it ran through, I'm not the right guy. And then the other thing he said, look, they could have moved. And then the other thing he said was,
wow,
I honked the horn.
That's what blew me away.
Yeah.
The I honk the horn, that just puts it all on everybody else.
Yeah.
How about the fact that it was a block street?
Yeah,
How about the fact that you went around barriers to be in this parade?
Right. Let's see. Okay, and then my defense, if I shot somebody with a gun, is like, you could have danced around the bullets. I mean, come on now.
Right. We've all seen movies where people get out of the way of bullets.
Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, it's just so bizarre. So that's where we are with him and creating all this chaos. So he gets up there, and then he's kind of like yelling and mocking the victims and being obnoxious and disrespectful. So what he does, he starts staring at Judge Jennifer Darrow. And I mean, he juts his jaw out, and he wore a mask all the time. And I was trying to think, why would he wear a mask? So I did a lot of reading, and it was consistent. People were like, his eyes are dead. And blah, blah. So one lady said, he wore a mask because he cannot quit smirking and snarking, and his cold, dead shark eyes can't be seen as much. Like that. And I thought, wow.
She may be right.
I think she was.
It may have been part of his public persona.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't want people to see how kind of horrible I am.
Right. Well, he took his mask off, and he would stare down with the judge, and I could tell she was getting uncomfortable. We all could, because she said so. She said, we're going to have to take a break because this man's in a staring contest with me.
That's what you have to do, is just call a spade and not pretend like it's not happening, or pretend like it's not happening.
Well, you're watching it going, is this happening? Is it do-it-yourself attorney that's got 76, 77 counts against him, killed 6 people and wounded 60-something more, and this whole town is in a tizzy. And so he said, I've got fans. All these people now, they've got fans. All these defendants. I mean, that made me laugh when he did not like the enunciation of the word defendant, because he's just taking every little thing.
Right,
and trying
truly
to pick
grasping at straws.
Yeah. So we go on down. He's held in the court. So his grandmama gets up there to speak for him. The victim impact statements, I'll tell you about those in a minute. But his grandmother gets up there, and her name is Dr. something, I don't even remember, but she's an ordained minister and about 80. And she's basically saying, basically he's lost his mind, and he needed help when he was 12 because he has bipolar. And that
well, it's too bad he didn't get help.
Right. Well, that's right.
Not everybody else's fault now.
Right. No. And it's not the victim's fault, And so she's asking for help for him. And So we know he basically, let's just cut to the end. He got sentenced for 6 life sentences and many, many other years. I can't even keep up with it. It looks like it changes when I'm trying to get it together. And that is for those other counts of the people he hurt.
Oh my gosh. I know there were so many victims. That's just, and just the worst case scenario. Like you said, kick off to the holiday season. It's a family event. People of all ages are out there. And there's so much work that goes into planning a parade, whether it's individual groups that are decorating their floats or organizing their people that are going to be on them. But it's a community feeling. And like I said, to me, that was one of the things that really came out of it was just how much the town, the state, the country rallied around these victims. And initially, I think people try to wrap their mind around why would somebody do something like this? I think we can all relate to maybe having a bad day, letting your temper get the better of you. But this guy took it to the nth degree. This is truly somebody with a level of, I'm not a psychologist, but there seems to be some major mental illness here where he never could take responsibility. There, do we know if there was any sort of, I'm sure they did some sort of blood test on him to determine if he was, substances or anything?
I didn't see anything about that. I think it's more he does what he wants. Like I said, he had an argument with his baby's mama. He had been charged with domestic violence before. He won't listen to anybody. And so that's what works for him. Being this big, bad bully, there's so many people that get away with that because we all shrink back and go, we're just appalled at it. But that's what's worked for him before. He took every bit of that anger against Erica Patterson, that's the baby's mama. He even made a fool out of her in court, too. He told the judge, I'm going to call her to the witness stand. So he did. And he asked her, he's basically like, do you have a job? And basically, I'm paraphrasing, it's probably not nice to say it this way. Are you still screwing around with him and him and him? Just some bad stuff there. And finally, the judge said, I've had enough of you. Stop it. And they because he just created the sideshow again. Right. So that's what Judge Darrell, through all this, keeping him in check, she became a TikTok sensation. Because she's pretty and she's firm and this, that, and the other. People were sending her flowers and balloons and incredible, the edible type thing, that edible arrangement and massage coupons and stuff, which you can take none of it.
Right.
But she was
unless you're on the U.S. Supreme Court, then apparently you can. This is what I hear.
This is Waukesha.
I'm not saying Justice Thomas did, but that's what I read and stuff.
Well, I'm saying that she didn't, okay? But anyway, he continued with his weirdo stuff. So he took all that anger at her when they were fighting that morning in his car. Can you imagine? They said people's bodies were around like bowling pins.
My God, that's horrible that he used the car like a battering ram.
He did.
I mean, it's a nightmare situation. And you think that he hit the most vulnerable, the elderly folks with the dancing grannies and then even the youngest ones. I mean, people had no idea. They never saw it coming. For him to say something so obnoxious as I honked, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Right.
It's like saying, okay, like you said, they couldn't get out of the way of the machine gun bullets at the time.
Right, exactly. But what with this guy, Darrell Brooks here, Darrell Brooks Jr., we've got another case we're working on too called Sarah Boone, and she's this same individual. She's the female version of Darrell Brooks. She locked her or zipped her boyfriend in a suitcase.
And you can look for more on that for sure. We're going to do a whole other segment on that one too. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well he does in prison. At some point, you're going to, whether you take responsibility or not, there will be consequences.
Definitely.
And it sounds like he finally got some. But I was reading that they even applauded when he was sentenced to those 6 life sentences.
Oh, yeah. And one man stands up in the back and goes, burn in hell. And the judge sends him out because he's got to keep decorum. But, people are like, he ain't wrong.
Right. And I guess that's what I was saying earlier. I mean, not that it matters if he had any kind of drugs or alcohol in his system. The bottom line is it was his choice to do what he did. And I mean, he didn't care. It was absolutely going to be, there's nothing else to blame. Not, you might have somebody that was like, oh my gosh, I went out partying. I didn't know. I wasn't in my right mind. I was irresponsible. I take responsibility for what happened. It shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have been drinking and driving, whatever the case may be. But there's none of that from him. There's nothing like, I was in a bad mood because my girlfriend made me mad. So I decided to go kill 6 people and plow through a parade. Not once, not ever. And I think that's like, people can understand if a mistake is made. It doesn't make it go away, but there's a way that it brings about some healing for the victims, I feel like. In this case, for him just to continue to mock, to turn his back on not just them, but the legal system. It was great to see a judge put him in his place because it sounds like nobody in his life ever had.
And then he's mocking, and then it's so disrespectful to the victims, too. He never said, I'm sorry. He tried it, I think, a little bit with a half-ass apology to do that. But then, my favorite thing that I've learned through advocacy is the victim impact statement. I don't know that much about the legal system. I've got a crash course and a PhD the last 10 years, but I never knew. You would see people on TV sometimes, and it's much like he was doing. They stand up and they're pointing to the person that killed their family member or something, and they're just losing their mind. But that's not necessarily a victim impact statement. A victim impact statement is, just like it says, the victim's time to read their statement or to share their statement with the court and the offender, what it did to you. And like I said, when I did mine for Sharon, I had written on it for months and months and months, because it's not a time for me to go up there and go, Brandon, it's to talk about Sharon and our life and how our lives will never be the same. And you took the basic sunshine out of my life type of thing. And that's what these folks were trying to do. And when they were doing that, Darrell Brooks was doing like little fake prayer hands and tapping his heart and stroking his face and stuff. So disrespectful.
Off the show.
Yeah. And so the judge didn't like him doing that either. But then when his grandma got up there, he even subpoenaed his own mother to testify. I mean, we are just making a mockery of the courts at that point. I mean, he doesn't even have the sense to realize these keys in his pocket with him driving that car, even if you honk the horn, you are still responsible.
Yeah, complete disconnect with reality.
Right. So after he got his sentence from Dr. Why do I keep saying doctor? I think I'm thinking about Dr.
Well, they have,
Darrell.
our doctor of jurisprudence.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Yeah, Jennifer Darrell. She sentenced him. Then the next day, he had to be brought into court for some other things he'd done, like attempting to run over Erica Patterson, the baby's mama. And so I just found it very striking. They roll him in there in a wheelchair. He's strapped in a wheelchair, and there's men all around, bailiffs and what have you, a man judge. He sits in there like a little child, just so meek and everything. And people said, here you go. Shiznit just got real. Welcome to 6 life sentences where you never getting out again.
And they put him in a wheelchair because he wouldn't walk in.
That's right. He refused to walk.
Again, it's just like, if I'm not there, it won't happen.
Right.
Just
right.
this fantasy.
Closing my eyes like a child, and that's the way Sarah Boone is on her 8th attorney that we're going to talk about on another podcast. But it's just, I look at all this, and basically inmates are running the asylum.
I know, but if Wonder Woman judge is there, they're not.
Wonder Woman judge is there. And like I told you, Wonder Woman's twin, so there's 2 of those running around, 2 Wonder Woman running around in that with Waukesha.
I know. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
If it doesn't roll off the tongue,
No.
we're not used to saying it. But Pam, thank you so much. I thought that was a good story to follow up on. I did wonder what had happened to him, and I had not followed it that closely since the initial tragedy, but it was so horrific. And again, we live in a world where there's video of everything, so it's just crazy to me that he ever thought he could get away with saying, it wasn't me.
That's right. Well, our condolences and the sympathies and just good wishes for them to rebuild their communities and their families and get this good vibe. You get excited thinking about Christmas parades or Mardi Gras or Fiesta or whatever. Do not let this man steal that joy from your community. And we are very, very aware that 6 people lost their life during this
I know, and Christmas will never be the same for them, just like it will never be the same for you. Your sister her life was taken by her own son in a very heinous and criminal way on Christmas Eve. If you're not familiar with Pam's sister's case, you can catch up with it on Mommy Killer 1 and 2, and there are several other episodes where we really get in depth into this too, called Murder and Madness, Confessions in the Field House, those sorts of things. But in that sense, it is hard for the holidays. This is going to be a constant reminder bystander, but at least they do have the entire town to rally around them. And that's wonderful. So anyway, and glad that he is in prison and hopefully will stay there. I mean,
he will.
There's no getting out of appeal, I don't think, on this one.
Right. I don't look for any more of these sideshows coming from him where he's in charge. But God did promise us beauty for ashes. And with time and with the community, you're able to see that and feel that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us. That's it for Christmas Parade Crasher, the Darrell Brooks Sideshow. We appreciate you joining us on Gulf Coast Confidential. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. And a big thanks to director, editor, and production engineer James Roy. You can listen to more of our Gulf Coast Confidential conversations wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Don't forget to watch on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel as well if you prefer. And if you do, be sure to like and subscribe. We would love it.
Subscribe.
All right. See you next time.